Hey guys, I've made a number of videos like this, and hopefully this format works. You can see me as I talk, but then also we have all the tools here. This is the shell, this is where I live, and do most of my work is logged into a Unix server. I'm a system administrator, an architect. Um, my background, it's interesting when I hear Edward Snowden talk. The way he describes his the job he was supposed to be doing is really the job that I do in life, and but in this case I have created this tool, this proof of concept, which I call Dimecash, and I've gotten some people to actually take a look at it, and the response is, "What the heck am I seeing?" So I've made some videos like this, but hopefully this one I can get some eyeballs on this, and maybe that'll help. So um, Dime Cache is a series of hacks, and the which allows you to embed information into cryptocurrency transactions that can be read. Now, uh, people will immediately, every time, say to me, "Oh, John, uh, you just don't understand op return codes. This people have been able to do this for a long time, but that's true. But that's a different solution than this, and this is different for a number of reasons. The first is that it's more accessible in that, for example, these messages here, you see anybody a uh, with a phone, like that you have a Dogecoin account on your phone with some currency, a little bit, and it's very inexpensive. It's like three for a penny for Dogecoin, and these transactions that you see is far less than a penny even to do one. So anybody with this, the cost of entry here is very low. You just have to be interested in any sort of cryptocurrency, and like I say, Dogecoin is really the most acceptable, accessible. Believe me, I would not have picked the dog meme coin because I thought that was neat. I would have loved to be having this discussion about Zcash or Litecoin or Bitcoin Cash, but those are literally more expensive, and this is the cheapest and most accessible, yet it works perfectly. So, um, what Dimecash is you see these, you can read this, right? My kids can read this, my wife can read this, everybody I show this to can read these messages, and um, so you can see it says it's a superwoman, not a girl, superwoman, because you have Superman and then you have Supergirl. Well, she's not a girl, she's a woman, just like Superman is a man, right? So if you wanted if you felt strongly that that was a great message to send, that you know just this line right here, Superwoman, you could click there, and this will redirect you to here, and this is now not on the Dimecash website anymore. And this illustrates the fact that this is completely distributed, because this is simply a transaction that uses this. This is called obviously unspendable. You nobody can own 9S Super Woman ZZZ. Nobody can ever get any money back out of this. But if you wanted to make a transaction to do this, and I'll do that right now as I'm talking with my phone. You could do that with no problem. I'm gonna send some coins to Superwoman, and as I talk, we should see it in the background. So you see, I've got my phone here, and it's able. I have the camera on, so it's able to get the QR code. So now I have the QR code for Superwoman on my phone. I don't know if you can see that, but just trust me, it's there. And then the amount to pay. Now, like I said, one Dogecoin is a penny. From the phone, I have to do at least one Dogecoin. From the back end, I can do less, and I'll show you that later. So I'm going to do 1.000, and the 3 zeros is a way to send what to send something that is distinct and obvious, because this system allows you to search for things like that. So the system will allow you to search. See, like here's this. Last time I sent all these ones, right? So this time I'm going to send 000 dot. Let's see. 85, 2. I just made that number up, and I click send. It says it hasn't been transferred yet, but I got a little click there, so hopefully that will transfer it. And yeah, so now on my phone, it says that it's transferred. Like I say, you can transfer this from anywhere, and so let's go. Let's do a search for, and this refreshes. The site refreshes periodically, so we should see this transaction come through, 9S Superwoman, and it'll be on the top right here. So what that's one of the questions people asked was, well how do you where's the button for me to put something into this? And I could add that, and especially there's a way to send a very, very long message, and I could add that too. It's a little trickier, but I begin to at that point grapple with issues of, am I enabling somebody to put something readable into the cryptocurrency, into the blockchain ledger, that could be damaging, that I could have some financial liability. However, you know, there's a trick to figuring out what these addresses are. It has to do with these numbers at the end, and so that's part of what I do is figure that out. I have a script over here, which anybody can download the script off of GitHub, my GitHub account. It's put in my GitHub account here just to show you. Let's see. Hopefully I can get there pretty easily. Yeah, it's called Unspendable, and you're welcome to go there yourself and grab this function that I'm going to show you, and then you can create your own. Oh, it's had some problems. Anyway, it's John Rigler Unspendable on GitHub. You can get the script yourself. It's somewhere around here, and send these yourself. I'll probably put the functionality back on the website at some point, where two functionalities. One where when you click on one of these, I'll show you the QR code rather than you having to go somewhere else to get the QR code, and the ability to create just these one-line addresses. Now, here's an example of the script running. You here we're specifying the first character, you see. So most Dogecoin transactions, and we'll see what happens here. Most Dogecoin transactions now, most addresses that are created start with the letter D, the letter capital D. There's 58 possible letters that can be used, and this is on purpose rather than 64, which would make more sense sort of mathematically. There's 58. Just searching on D, that might take a little bit too long. So yeah, so what the website does here is it simply matches. So here's a match on D, and it happens to contain these two Z's. Well, the two Z's, it's just sort of a numbers game, right? See, you see the two Z's here. Okay, that is a regular address. That's not obviously unspendable. If you put in three Z's, then that's more unlikely, right? So it's more unlikely that it'll start with D and have three Z's. Still, you see that. So that is why, rather than D, I begin to add letters into the namespace. So now we have DC, and so here we begin to now see words, right? So this is unspendable. Somebody's sent that amount of Dogecoin to another person, and that's their address. You can't really read that. There's your three Z's, actually four Z's in a row. That is a coincidence. There's no way mathematically, as far as I understand, that they could have gotten that to happen. You can keep asking for new addresses until you get some meaning here, maybe, but way back here, you're not going to get that. So that's a coincidence that you've got all these Z's in a row. Oh, well, that's not a coincidence. That's one of the ones I made. And then capital D, capital C, small x is even more specific. So when you when you see that, now you're seeing almost exclusively, you're seeing things that I've sent. These are all messages that I've sent into the system in the form of these transactions. So there's that, and then there is these other ranges. This range 9 is not really being used anymore. You have some 9 addresses out there, but the clients are not providing you with new 9 addresses. And my guess is that there's some overlap with maybe another currency that uses 9, or for whatever reason, it appears to be abandoned. However, when you're making this, you can simply create whatever you want. So that's sort of an explanation of what you see here, and why there's no way for you to enter it. So that there is sort of, and that really speaks to the distributed nature of this. If this were to say something terrible, if you look at it and you can read something that is no good, and the government figures out who I am, not very hard, what this website is, it's HTTPS, it's all registered, and they tell me to shut the thing down, it won't matter, because anybody who uses the same methodology of looking at all the blocks and only showing things in a certain namespace, and in this case I'm using 9 small s. Anybody can see it. This is not on. I know it may appear to be on the site, and I do have copies of blocks and things that I transform into different formats, but the main thing is that this message is in this block. I show you the block too over here. Here's the amount. In the amount, I also put what I call advanced Satoshi codes. That's a term that I use. I don't know if anybody else is using that. I've also referred to them sometimes as weak hashes. Weak, because they're not very. This is a hash, but it's not a very good hash. I can actually show you what that hash is. Let's see if I can do that here. Oh, all will be revealed. Okay, so they've been saying for a long time that 39692 is a number that I can argue is me. But somebody else could send, anybody obviously could send an amount of Dogecoin for 000399692. And I could say, well, I didn't do that. How do you know that I did that? But you can make the argument if you can show some logic behind 39692. And so it also is so it has to do with the fact that I am a Joyce scholar, and what that means is I'm a fan of and a reader of James Joyce, specifically his last novel, Finnegan's Wake, which he spent half of his career writing. This is Finnegan's Wake, and is almost not read at all. A lot of folks will get a copy of Ulysses because they feel like they have to, because they're in the Barnes and Nobles and they see with his one eye like a cyclops. James Joyce is peering down at them. You must understand Ulysses. This is a very different book from Ulysses. It's wonderful to read. Joseph Campbell really got his start, and Joseph Campbell is this great mythicist who wrote the hero's journey, created the monomyth based on this, all based on this hero with a thousand faces. I think is one of his books, and this is actually where Dimecash comes from too. There's in the Dimecash comes before the story of Amuxi and the Gripes, which is Aesop's fable about the fox and the grapes, in this sort of strange dream format. So the whole book is written in this. It's almost closer to the Voynich manuscripts than any other piece of contemporary fiction, and it's supposed to be a dream, but it seems impenetrable. So you have to sort of cheat and get some help to figure it out. But as Terence McKenna says, once you start down that path, it begins to make sense. And this very much informed this idea of Dimecash, and also lent its name to the project, because even though see, it says here, Bill, here is the grocery list. So, and there's still some sort of presentation issues here. You just gotta kind of bear with that. But even though this is not any sort of standard agreed upon way to communicate, everybody's able to read this. Everybody's able to understand that the small x's here are spaces. Now, the one is a dot, so that's like a period. And other small letters have meanings, and in fact, you could take a bash function and or any sort of coding and put it in here. Like one thing I like to do, here's a reference to let's see, that's a reference to Twin Peaks, and this is how I type bash functions. That's how I do comments, and this is a valid function. Oh, it's going to all be stuck in there. I'm just going to put a couple X's there. That should work. Of course, what's ironic is I'm just asking it to I'm just coding it. I'm not asking it to run, but it should run. So not only is this readable, but you could embed code into here to where you can anybody that sees this uh, could come to understand that the little b and the little d is supposed to be this. Um, I do think that that's backwards. It's the B and the D is supposed to represent those. There's a little bug right there, but I put things like the Z's at the end. So you can there's many levels that this works on. You can also do this. You can create the bash function itself, and again this is a valid piece of code, but it doesn't actually do anything, right? So if you type that, it's formatted it nicely, and that's what I like about this. And then you simply take it, and this command right here is what I call is one of the Satoshi codes that I use, and it is the 5-digit hash. So 55514. So if I was to send 55514, that could mean many things, and sent right here, just as you see this. And when I say send, let me explain a little bit more what I'm saying. So this is just over one Dogecoin. Three Dogecoin for a penny. So this is like a third of a penny. It's probably a minor fee. So this was almost a penny to send this message. So, somebody asked me, well, John, my daughter, she sends text messages back and forth all day long. This is much more expensive than that. Yes, but this is also put on the blockchain ledger in this very different readable format that can never be removed. That's the nature of the distributed ledger, and anybody can see. This is very seeable. This is more readable than op return codes, and easier to create, easier to write. Once you have this code, let's see if Supergirl ever showed up. Once you have this code, it's that's interesting. For some reason, it didn't show up. Once you have this code, you can send these however you want. And the other thing is that from the back end, somebody who is running basically a miner. When you run a miner, you have this CLI where you can let's see, send many, and I'm probably not going to be able to get the command exactly right, but you can send many transactions at once, and that was used to I guess for a number of different purposes. You can't do that from the phone. You can only send one transaction at a time from these graphical interfaces. But when you have that ability to send more than one transaction, I think this is very important. This is why this is a game changer. You can send something that's quite long. For example, this transaction right here. Now I was able to drill down to this from the website. The website gives you the ability to sort of find these things. But this is quite long, pretty obnoxious. But you want to get people's attention. So it says, the Y is a dash. So it says, "Hello, Internet Brain Trust. How are you?" K is a question. Little K is a question mark. "I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. Anyhow, I want to tell you that you are." It goes on, and it's sort of goading people into saying that you better pay attention to this. This is going to be significant. This is pretty epic. You want to hear more? Sure. So just to stop for a second, this is what's significant here is that this piggybacks on existing technology. Um, uh, as I said before, I'm not a coder. I'm not a front end developer. I'm a back end developer. I'm a hacker, a DevOps guy. But this is a very long message. This is 83 of these together, and they always show up in the same order. Um, I know when I was at Hedera Hashgraph, Dr. Baird released a paper, um, and it wasn't just him; it was a group effort, but about the Hashgraph's ability to keep the order of records and have the fair order. Now, this is different because this is all one record. And within the one record, the order is always the same. However, the point is completely valid that the fair, if you want to say the fair order of records coming into one block in Dogecoin, can't be, is not stored. Anyway, that's a digression. This long record, you can say things in a much more readable way. Arguably, it's not easier to create than an op return code, but it's easier to see. And people just with a phone can pick things out of this. You can also include valid addresses in this. However, and I think I did that here somewhere. You can find like this, right? Okay, so I sent a much larger amount of currency here. This is an actual address. This is an address on my phone, but when I sent it, I got a message that said you should avoid that. It could make your account stop working because the technology has an issue with it. Coming straight from the man himself who created the app and is I forget his name. I think it's Lager or something. Anyway, I certainly don't want to upset him or disregard his advice because I'm sure he's absolutely correct. Um, so, but like I say, all sorts of information can be encoded in here. You can take an address, even a Bitcoin address, a Litecoin address. You can break it in half, and you can put it in here in two transactions. You can put that in different transactions. You can send through the back end I could send a transaction right to this guy that, for example, maybe would make reference to the hash of all of this together in this way that I hash things. So there's a lot of ways to, I would say, indict yourself or to show that this absolutely is one person that did all this. You may not know who they are, or it's very likely. It's hard to imagine that this is not one person that sent these two transactions at the same time. So there you go. There you go. There is Dimecash. I hope that made some sense. Oh, so there's another thing that I created here, and I made some reference to, is the cult of the dolphin. And this was one of my just early things that I was playing around with. So some folks asked, you got to explain that. These are all the Satoshi codes, and they have certain meanings to me. This one is this was a zip code. So I sent a zip code. You can send ISO codes. I think I sent some ISO codes to the original, one of the original burn addresses. It was like Doge Party or something. And like I say, I like these 5-digit hashes because on the back end you can you and somebody else can both have the function or the piece of code that becomes the hash. I don't think it works if the number is a reference to, let's say, an index in a database. Well, that's not nearly the same as that's not nearly the same as saying, oh, uh, 55514 means this wow bob wow Twin Peaks David Lynch reference. I have a couple David Lynch references in here too. That's what there's one that's got a light, and there's this guy got a light, got a light, got a light. Anyway, so now you could say, well, but John, how can you say that 55514 is this? Um, if you if you show this like to somebody like say in a courtroom, and you make that argument, then I argue that somebody else would have to say, it must mean something else, and they would have to explain what that something else is, and that something else will not be readable, will not be something that you can make sense of in the same way. And that's why it's called Dimecash. That's what ties it back to the Finnegan's Wake, because this is very much about making sense. This is sort of a primer in understanding how to make sense of real language in these ideas. In the actual Dimecash section, it's referenced a couple times, and you can get the sense from looking at it, even if you don't understand exactly what you're seeing. You eventually figure out that this is a highfalutin university professor who is the narrator. It doesn't in the novel, just like in real life, you don't have and then Bill said or whatever. So yes, it's the narrator. He's talking about the Dimecash problem, dime dilemma, cash. It just goes on from there, and then, like I say, it goes into the Mooksy and the Gripe story, which is quite famous, and also with this cult. And I didn't realize this until just a minute ago. Robert Anton Wilson, when he wrote the Illuminatus trilogy, he was very much referenced. He was very much influenced by Finnegan's Wake, and you can there's recordings of him talking about it, talking about the things that he's found in there on his websites where I make reference to David Foster Wallace, who I have a picture of his book that's all marked up with him trying to figure out. There's a dolphin right there on the cover. So I I didn't even remember when I started this dull cult of the coffin thing. I didn't even remember that that it's been a long time since I read this book, but these ideas just sort of that's how language works. That's how communication works, and myth even works. That's it. That's all the pieces. So now the pieces are all there in this long rambling post. Um, and so my question then, which I'd love for people to respond to and engage in, is where do we go? Where do we go from here? What can be used? Obviously, the Dimecash site itself can be developed. I'm interested in monetizing some of these ideas, but at the same time, this is very open. This is very new in that you're putting readable things out in a format that there's readable things, there's secrets, right? You could consider this a secret. Like, what does 33494 mean? Well, I don't remember that. I would have to go look that up. If I happen to have, I'm pretty sure that's going to be a different hack. That might be David Alderman. Let's see. I have one called David Alderman. Oops. And it uses these funny characters. I like to use funny characters. David, I remember this by heart. David Alderman. I have a video somewhere that references that. Let's see. Let's see what that is. David Alderman is I had the opportunity to go sit into a courtroom and to try to understand what was going on. And David Alderman was the father of one of the defendants. And I was very moved by the plight of the defendant, who was clearly going to be just smashed, demolished, this young woman. And I had talked to her father a little bit, who was there for moral support. And so I was moved enough to sort of, in the mythos of my thinking, create this tiny little hash and reduce it to a number. So that might well be David Alderman. Let's see. So and so David Alderman is also a reference to Finnegan's Wake, because one of the main characters, HCE, which stands for Here Comes Everybody, or Harold Chimpton Herowicker, or How Charmingly Exquisite, all these other strange things. He wanted to be an alderman, and he feared that his unnamed transgressions in the park might keep that from happening. So 48797 is David Alderman. See if we can find 48797 here somewhere. There it is. There it is. That's the meaning of this. The meaning of this Satoshi code, which is created by destroying a small amount of money, is this exactly. David Alderman, with these small fermented D's, and for me, that immediately makes a connection. Nobody else in the world would understand that, except that I just disclosed it all now. I even had some packing slips or something that I scribbled this on, so that would be almost like a paper version of this, that you could then make this argument. So I would say somebody would need to make an argument that 48797 means something simpler than David Alderman. It's impossible for, I don't care if you have 47 Watsons doing quantum computing, you're probably never going to come up with this simple, elegant little, I believe it's elegant, little function that does absolutely nothing, but represents this code in this way. But for me, like I said, I could find it immediately. That date that I visited the courtroom was 4/17/2019, or maybe perhaps it was the day before. I could trace back and see. So 4/15 was the day that I went and visited the court. 4/17 was a few days later, after I'd thought about this and been moved by the plight of these people who are, in my mind, in my mythos, in the cult of the dolphin. It's everybody. It's all of us, and that's another big theme in Finnegan's Wake. This is the dream story of us all, of the common person, there's a scene in a bar where there's like 17 things going on at once, and that is a real life. That's what Joyce was about. That's how all of this fits together. Um, so you got a lot of pieces here. I think this is worthy of some sort of comment. I'll get this on YouTube and uh, go back to those 4chan. I posted on 4chan and oh, I forget. I'll go find all the posts and make a reference to this. Um, and thanks, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening to me ramble. I know many of you are, for those that stuck through it, you now understand I've disclosed almost everything. I haven't disclosed the meaning of 39692. Good luck trying to figure that one out. I can tell you that it's similar to David Alderman, that it is a Finnegan's Wake quote. It has to do with other stuff. Anyway.